Today I'm going to look at some singles tactics, and the tactics I'm going to look at are also going to be in relation to doubles, but rather than overload you with information in singles and doubles tactics, I'm just going to focus on singles today and look at doubles tactics in another video. There are 5 main tactical situations in the game that you need to be aware of and maximise when out on court. Number 1, you need to get the ball over and in. Number 2, you need to move your opponent. Number 3, get back to a good court positioning. Number 4, play to your strengths. And number 5, play to your opponent's weaknesses. Now, before I dive deeper into the tactical situations in the game, I think it's important to mention that in order for you to work on tactics with your players can only achieve tactically what they can do technically. So for example, if you're working with a beginner, then the following tactical approach or drill in your session you probably want to avoid. So I'm going to head over and I'm going to say to my beginner, as an example of what not to do, this is the drill for today. We're going to work on moving around our backhands. Okay, we're going to hit a topspin forehand inside out cross court. We're then going to move in. We're going to hit a drive forehand volley. Okay, then we're going to move into a net, and then we're going to back off, and now we're going to hit a smash. Okay, and now we're going to move in. Okay, now we're going to hit a drop forehand volley, short angle into the service box just there. Now that's quite an advanced tactical approach to a session for a beginner. So just bear in mind that when you're working with different levels of players, then they can only achieve tactically what they can do technically. So let's look at the first tactic. So the first tactic is to get the ball over the net and into the court. So if we head up to the net just here, not only do we want to get the ball over and in, but we want to get the ball over and in down the center of the court with good margin over the net. Okay, and that's the goal, is to build consistency of height and direction down the center, over and in. That's the number 1 goal in tennis, and particularly for beginners. Now we've looked at over and in, now we need to look at moving your opponent. So moving your opponent from side to side, forwards and backwards, so you can control the rally and open up the space on the court. So let's just imagine that my opponent is moving me. So I'm going to demonstrate that. So my opponent's going to move me over here to a forehand. Okay, then we're going to move me over here for the backhand. All right, and perhaps, okay, now they're going to move me into the mid-court area. So I'm in here playing mid-court balls. Oh, now they're going to move me back. So I'm having to sort of hit back here, deeper balls. And when they move me around on the court like that, they're opening up the spaces on the court tactically to be able to maybe use their strengths and hit into those spaces. So moving your opponent is really, really important for any level of player. So move your opponent. We're now going to look at court positioning. We're going to look at the position that you need to be in on the court depending on the game situation. So to start with, you need to make sure in singles that you're behind the baseline, about 1 meter away, in a ready position, ready to go for your opponent. When they make contact with the ball, you do your split step and you go. You also need to make sure that when you're in a wide position over here and you hit this forehand, or you're over here, okay, and you hit this backhand, or maybe you move back and you have to hit a high ball here from a deep position, or maybe you move in here and you're a little bit in the middle here, and just come back. You need to make sure that you're always recovering after those positions in around the court. Now there is a time and a moment where if you go into the court so much here and you're sort of getting closer and closer to the service line, that you need to be hitting approach shots from here. So you'll go in, you'll check into the tee here, and then you'll maybe move across and finish off the point there with your court positioning. But I'm going to focus purely just on the situation at the back of the court here today in terms of court positioning, and we're going to go into some different kind of scenarios now as we go through the session. So before I go into the different types of attacking, rallying and neutralizing in the rally, I just want to touch on the court positioning in terms of where you need to stand after you make contact with the ball. Now, you don't start in the center, because when you start in the center here, it kind of would make sense that the center is a good position. And maybe as a beginner that might be true. But when you're playing and you need to cover the angles of the court. Now, when you're in the center, you actually open up angles either side, okay? And those angles are there for your opponent to hit the ball into. And that's one reason. Another reason is when you play singles points or doubles points, you need to be able to hit a large percentage of your shots cross court, maybe 80% of the time. And the reason for that are for the following reasons. So when you hit cross court, and I'm a right-handed player here, the natural rotation of my body goes from right here, okay, to left. So I naturally rotate in the cross court direction. That's number one. The next reason is there's a bigger distance diagonally across the court than there is down the line, so you have more margin for error. Another reason is the net is lower in the center, okay, than it is on the end. So when you look at the net height here and you're in this position here, the net is lower here, okay, than it is over here. It's a lot more height here on the singles height there. So you have a lower net. And then finally, the final reason is when you hit cross court, you're moving your opponent off the court, okay? So if my opponent's playing to me, they're moving me off here like this. So that's it. So you have the net is lower, it's a natural rotation of the hips, there's a bigger space cross court, and you're moving your opponent off the court. So that's why that is a percentage shot. So therefore, when you play your forehand cross court, let's say, and you recover to here, 80% of the time they're going to be playing the percentage ball, which is the low risk ball, cross court back to you. Now, if they do decide, let's say 20% of the time, because they obviously want to change their patterns of play, that they're going to go down the line, they're going to have to hit their ball really close to the line, right? Or around here, really close to the baseline, for me to not at least get my racket on the ball. And that's why it's a low percentage shot. They'll have higher part of the net, they have to stop the rotation of their body going down the line, higher part of the net, they have less space because it's going straight down the line, and they have less margin for error. So from here, I should be able to at least get my racket onto balls that are around here. And then if they're hitting the corner of the court just there, well, you know, that's just great shot. But I don't think that's going to happen 9 times out of 10. I think that's going to happen maybe 2 times out of 10. So it's a low percentage shot, and you know that's why you don't want to go for that. So when I do forehands cross court here, my recovery is to here. Okay, when I'm over here and I do backhand cross there, okay, I want my recovery is to here. Same thing, look, if I go backhand line, now the percentage ball, maybe I've gone backhand line because the ball's a bit shorter and I'm going to play it in there. Now, because I've gone backhand line, because maybe it was a good situation in the point because I could step up and play it, now they're going to do the high percentage shot cross court, so I know that I can come straight over to this side. Same thing here, if I move up, maybe it's a situation in the game where I'm sort of in this area, I can go forehand line, and then my next focus is to come straight back to cross court. So you always recover to the opposite side of where you hit the ball. So that's the court positioning for singles. And the same thing, you need to get into that ready position, onto that split step, you know, ready for the next ball. We're now going to look at using your strengths to construct the point when you rally. Now that could be when you serve, you could be really good with accuracy. It could be when you move in on second serves, maybe you're quite good to be proactive and try and dictate off the second serve return. It might be that in the rally, you like to use your forehand as much as possible. So you like to sort of step behind and run around your backhand and hit inside out or inside in forehands. It might be that within the point, you like to, every time you get a short ball on the backhand side, maybe you're a double-handed backhand player, you like to attack down the line. It might be that you love coming to the net You might be looking to get into that opportunity to come inside the court, and then you get that mid-court ball, you move up. You like to come in and you like to finish points off at the net. And what's really important is that, if you don't know already, is have a think about your strengths and what you do well, and try and maximize those strengths in the points. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to discuss how you need to make sure that when you're trying to construct the point by using your strengths, that you can utilize them. So when you're playing your points, if you're looking to get your forehand involved as much as possible in a rally, and you're playing against I'm a right-handed player, maybe I'm playing against another right-handed player, that I try and make sure that I go cross-court to their forehand, even if their forehand is their strength, because if my forehand is my strength, I'm going to go cross-court to their forehand. I'm going to get into that good position we talked about already today. The ball's going to come back cross-court to my forehand 80% of the time. Now, if it is my strength, and I'm playing into their strength, and my strength is more impactful than their strength, then I'm probably going to get some mid-court balls that I could maybe move in and then hit forehands down the line. Or maybe if I jam them up in a rally, maybe we're rallying and I move up in the court here, and then I sort of flatten it out down the center. Well, not flatten it out, but hit the ball down the center with a lot of spin, so that they're at the other end and they're sort of backing off like this and having to cope with the ball. Maybe the ball goes up in the air. It kind of gives me time to run around my backhand. I take the ball on the top of the bounce here, and then I attack the forehand that way. Just showed you a few ideas of how to kind of get your forehand into play. And sometimes it's worth mentioning that even if you're going into their forehand and it is their strength, to kind of trust your game and what you're doing. And if their forehand is stronger than yours, then you need to be thinking of different ways to get them out of their comfort zone on their forehand by moving them off the court. Maybe every time you get a shorter ball here, you can go short angle here to get them sort of stretching a little bit out wide so they can't use their strength. And sometimes it's worth going down the center to sort of take the angles away, which I will go on to a little bit later. Now we're going to look at playing to your opponent's weaknesses. Now this kind of links into playing to your strengths from the last part of the session here. And to start with, if we just recap, I'm using my strengths. I'm going with my strength cross court, okay, because that's a high percentage ball, but it's going into their strength. And we talked about if I hit a short angle, they might get out of position, and then I can sort of dictate a little bit more. So we talked about that. But if you are playing and you recognize that their weakness is their backhand, then sometimes it's a really good idea to still go into their strength. And I'll tell you for why. And the reason why is when you play into your opponent's strengths, it opens up the space on the weaker side. So let's just say that their backhand is their weaker shot. If I go cross and I'm going cross and I'm getting them out of position on the forehand, it's going cross-court forehand, and they're off the court. When that ball comes back, if I run around my backhand and I hit an inside-out forehand here, well maybe not here, around here a bit more, and produce that angle, I don't have to aim so close to the lines to succeed. So I've played the ball into their strength to open up their weakness. And it's a really good tactic to use actually. And sometimes it's a little bit overlooked. So play into their strength to open up their weakness.
If you're finding my content useful and you're interested in accessing a free online coaching tutorial, then check out the video that I've put down there in the description, where I'll explain how you can send in your video of you playing tennis, where I analyse your game, put together an on-court tennis tutorial with demonstrations and progressions for you for free.
Now it might be that their weakness isn't a technical thing, it might be movement. So in that case, with your game, you're looking to maybe hit short angles, hit the ball deep to the corner, bring them in, hit the ball shorter, and just see what their movement's like. Because perhaps maybe laterally moving along the baseline, they're quite comfortable with. and maybe even moving backwards just a little bit here. But if you send the ball, you get the opportunity, you come in here, you send the ball short angle, you get round the outside of the ball there, and you move them off the court, and they have to come sort of forward and in. And then maybe on the next ball, you move around, you hit high and deep to the backhand corner. So on this time, maybe they're all the way back here, and they're having to hit the ball deep from back there. And you're really moving them around and getting them out of position. Maybe then their strength, if that was their forehand, is now a weakness because their movement is not supporting that great technical shot they have. So it's not always based around technique. It could be movement. It could even be the mental side of the game, but that's a session for another video. So the next thing we're going to look at is going to get my cones here. We're going to look at some game situations, and we're also going to look at some margins for error. So I've got some cones, and we're going to say that I'm going to talk about the red, the yellow, and the green cone. So when you construct a point and you're looking to build the rally, you're always in that situation where you're either defending a ball, which you're back here, maybe moving back like this. I like to think about it as neutralizing. Sometimes defensive, the word defensive might somehow make you a bit passive. So I like neutralize. So let's just say we're neutralizing back here. Maybe we're going to hit with good height, good depth from back here on the red. Here on the yellow, this is like a rally ball where we're looking to build the rally. We're not looking to try and be proactive and win the point. We're just looking to build and sort of look for our opportunities. So maybe I'm moving through here to the baseline and playing that and recovering back to that good position we looked at a short while ago. And the yellow cone is indicating that kind of 50-50 in the rally. No one's on top, no one's neutralizing. It's just a building phase. And then we've got the green cone here, which is where we come inside the court. Maybe when we were building from the yellow here, okay, and we were pushing them back, maybe they were a little bit off balance, and on the next ball I move into the green here, so maybe my court positioning starts here, I come in and then I'm trying to sort of take the ball on a little bit earlier, put them under a little bit more pressure and be proactive and try and take time away. So these different game situations, they're always going to go sort of, am I having to neutralize? Am I building the rally? Or am I being a bit more proactive and moving in and trying to take time away? So if you can work on these three different areas, and it's kind of like a traffic light, red, amber, green. So red is like I'm stopping, I'm just trying to neutralize. Amber is I'm building, I'm at the traffic lights, I'm getting ready to go. Okay, and then green is go. So that's why I've chosen the red, the yellow, and the green. So it's like a tactical, neutralize, build the rally, try and be proactive and go in. And most of the time you want to be using the yellow or the build the rally. So you're looking to build the rally throughout the points. So that's those ones. Neutralize, build, and then attack. So there we have it. We've looked at over and in. We've looked at move your opponent. We've looked at maintaining a good court position. We've looked at using your strengths and playing into your opponent's weaknesses. We've looked at neutralizing from back here. We've looked at building from here. We've looked at moving up and moving in and taking the ball and being proactive in here. Now there's one final thing I'd like to look at here today, and that is percentage shots that you play. Now when you play the ball, it's really important that you try not to aim near the lines. And I've got some markers here which I'd like to put down. I'm going to put them here just as a bit of a reference, because this is tactical. Margin for error is really important. I'll come back to that shortly. But I already talked about the importance of hitting good height over the net. And I talked about that for beginners earlier on in the session, but all players, because if you hit the ball that high over the net, you've got margin. The ball might come under here, it might come under here. You want to avoid from hitting it down here. This is a low percentage height here, so you want to go this high over the net. With those court positionings we've looked at, with the recoveries, the different game situations, but if the player's playing from that end, and we're talking about that player now, we're not talking about me for a change, we're talking about them, they want to be aiming their shots in what I call the 80% success area. Now that is, if you look at these yellow lines here, they're going across, I've put them down in an area where that player ideally wants to be aiming towards, okay? So if I get a ball out, which I didn't think I was going to do today, but I do have a ball, if they aim towards this line here, okay, they're likely to either land there, right, or maybe they'll land there. So there's a margin for error, and I'm calling it an 80% area, because what you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be aiming where this yellow line is to the white line, to the sideline here, because for obvious reasons that could be out over here or it could be just in here. So it gives you that margin for error that you're looking for on the sidelines. Now the same thing on the baseline. You don't want to be aiming it any deeper than here. You don't want it to be back here like this. I mean, this is really close to the baseline. Excuse me. Particularly when you hit down the center, you don't have enough space. Maybe cross court. It's still going to be risky if you come to this corner here. Now, when you're landing this short in the court, as long as your ball has a lot of topspin on the ball, it's going to be bouncing, it's going to be rising, and as long as it's rising over the baseline, then that's okay. I mean, you can even have a ball land inside, just past the service line here, and as long as it has enough topspin on the ball, it's going to bounce and it's going to rise, and as long as it doesn't start to fade, as long as it's still rising with the topspin, then you're going to keep your opponent back. And that's really important to have that margin for error. So I call it the 80% margin for error in here and away from the baseline. Now, the final thing I'd like to talk about is, I'm just going to move these off the court here. If you imagine this sort of yellow rectangle going around the court, it's quite a good thing to think about. So the next thing we're going to look at here is a couple of things. The first thing is, whenever you're out of position on the court, now I've already talked about hitting cross court as a high percentage shot, but sometimes it's a really good idea. If you're really out of position, like maybe you're all the way back here and you need to neutralize, if you go cross court from this position, you then open up even more angles sometimes to go down the line. So what I like to do sometimes from this position here is I like to send the ball with good height, good depth down the center. And the reason why I want to hit it down the center is because when the ball lands down the center, as long as it's deep, it's going to keep me back, okay? Now if I try and hit an angle off of this central position when I'm back, I don't have the angles to play. Okay, so hitting the ball down the center really neutralizes and takes away the opportunity for my opponent to hit angles to me. Now it's really important that you don't hit the ball and give them mid-court balls that land in really short here. So if they come in here, you know, if they're like this and they come in and they take the ball on the rise here, this is when they can take it higher up and then hit some angles from there. So as long as you're pinning them back, whenever you need to neutralize, you'll see those players sometimes, they'll just hit the ball up really high and it just sort of goes center of the court, okay? Or maybe they'll hit topspin forehand from this deep position, okay? Or maybe they're over here and they'll hit topspin backhand from this deep position. As long as you go high and center, sometimes that's good enough just to keep them back and keep them pinned. So that's a really good one for that. So there we have it, a session on the 5 tactical game situations in singles. We've looked at getting the ball over and in, moving your opponent, maintaining a good court positioning, playing to your strengths and playing to your opponent's weaknesses. It's now time for you to get out on court and practice some of these tactics yourself. I look forward to seeing you next time.